Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson where we're going to talk about new words. Now, I should clarify this. These are new words, like not the new words that were just added to the dictionary for 2024. These are new words that actually get used in everyday English conversations. Words that I've heard over the last year or 5 years, or even a couple of them might be 10 years old. You might be able to guess what the first word is. I didn't hear this word till about 3 years ago. I'll talk about it in just a moment, but it's a new sport that's taking over tennis courts around the world. It's not tennis. But yes, new words. Sometimes they'll say, here are the new words that people are using in 2024. And I read the list and I think there's 2 words on that list that I do hear in regular everyday English conversations, and the rest I don't actually hear. Even I think as someone my age, maybe there's some I don't hear, but I do work in a high school, so my feeling is I would probably hear most of these new words. So anyways, welcome to this English lesson about new words and phrases. It's about 25 new words and phrases that are actually used, in my opinion, by English speakers in Canada, in my area. Pickleball. So pickleball is a new sport. Well, relatively new. It was new to me about 2 or 3 years ago. It's a sport that looks like tennis, but it's played on a much smaller part of the tennis court with a different net. I think the net's a little bit lower. You can see here the paddles look kind of flat, and the ball is actually, I guess it would be called a wiffle ball. Like, it's not like a tennis ball where it bounces really good and you can hit it really far. It actually goes a little slower. Even if you hit it really hard, it goes a bit slower. But pickleball has, like when I look out at the tennis courts at our school has tennis courts, yes. Usually people are playing pickleball. Maybe it's half and half, but pickleball, a fun new sport. And it was originally played, I think, by older people who are 50, 55 plus, but now it's played by a lot of people. I think our school might have a pickleball tournament at some point, and people of all ages will come. Mid. So this is a word that I have heard quite a bit. Those shoes are so mid, or that teacher's kind of mid. It means that the person you're talking about is just average, or even a little bit below average. Like, hey, do you like my new shirt? It's kind of mid. It means you don't hate it, but you don't like it. I don't use this word. By the way, I should also mention that these words, I think a third of them aren't even in the dictionary, or at least not in Google's dictionary for spell checking. So these are words that I have heard. How was the movie? It was kind of mid. It means it was okay, but it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't a total bomb. So mid, just average. What's Bob like as an English teacher? He's kind of mid. I actually think this phrase might be from the much older and longer phrase, fair to middling. You might want to look that one up. It's an older English phrase that means the same thing. Coffee badging. So this is why I'm doing this lesson. There was a news article in my news feed that said people are starting to coffee badge. People are coffee badging. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm reading it, so I should know what this is. Apparently, this is when you've been working remotely and your work says you have to start coming into work. So you go to work and you make sure everyone sees you and you have a cup of coffee, and then you just go home and work from home. This would not work at my place of work. I have to be there for 3/4 of the day. I'm part-time. If I went to work, said hi to my boss, walked around so everyone saw that I was there drinking a coffee, and then just went home, I would lose my job eventually. I would at least get what is referred to as a talking to. I would get a talking to if I did that. So coffee badging. New phrase for me just this past week. Saw it in a news article. Apparently, some people are doing it. Greedflation. So this too is not a proper word, but you have inflation when the price of things continually goes up. In Canada, we had really high inflation for a year. Things were becoming more expensive. Greedflation is when the price goes up, but there's no reason other than the store or the business owner is trying to make more money. And greedflation can happen when there's inflation because they think, oh, the price of everything's going up anyways. Let's charge $1 more for our apple pies or whatever it is you are selling. So you can see it is a combination of two words, greed. Greed is when you just want lots of things. You want lots of money. You just, that's how you think. And inflation is when the price of things normally goes up over time. Deepfake. So again, these are not brand new words. These are words that I have heard and have started being used in the last year or 5 years or 10 years. Deepfake, I probably heard about 3 or 4 years ago. A deepfake is when you take someone else's face and you put it onto a photo or into a video. I'm afraid at some point there will be English lessons on the internet where people will deepfake me. So it will be a lesson I didn't make, but they'll use my face. You can see here in the far picture, that's not Tom Cruise, but in this close picture, it certainly looks like Tom Cruise. So deepfakes, relatively new term. They're kind of worrisome because we don't want people to create fake videos of important people in the world. And that's already started to happen. People will take a politician's face and create a fake video, a deep fake of them saying something they didn't actually say. The GOAT. So GOAT, of course, is what's called an acronym. So we're not actually saying Messi is a GOAT, like a billy goat. We're saying he's the greatest of all time. So G, greatest, O of A, all, T, time, greatest of all time. So when you are the GOAT, it means you are one of the best people in your sport or at work or in a certain career. Matt Damon is the GOAT. When you talk about actors, he is the greatest of all time, in my opinion. This might cause controversy. Some people don't agree with this, but I would say he certainly earned this title of being the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Generative AI. So you've probably read this term. Generative AI is artificial intelligence that creates things. Either it creates a piece of writing or a piece of or a photograph. When you look at this photograph, you can kind of tell that it was made by AI. Now, I turned up the settings when I did this, but you can see these leaves don't quite look realistic. Let's get really big on this. You can see the leaves, especially to me, look like, okay, this was made by AI. So the word generative refers to, it is generating, okay? So it's generating something. And that is probably just in the last couple of years, we've started to see this term a lot more. Tiny house. So this is one that's probably more like 10 years old. A tiny house is a really, really small house, and it's usually built on a trailer. So it's not like a camper trailer. It's an actual house. I picked a bad picture though. If you look behind the chair, you can just see that there are wheels. So a tiny house is a tiny, tiny house on wheels that you can park somewhere and you can live in. There was actually a tiny house on my property for a while. If you look back 2 years, you'll see that my son had a tiny house and he lived on my property in his tiny house. So a tiny house, again, this isn't like a camper trailer that you take to campgrounds, you know, like a white camper. This is an actual house that you can live in year round, but it's usually built on a trailer, so you can move it if you need to. It doesn't have to be on a trailer, but most of the times when I think of tiny house, and there are TV shows about these as well. You can watch shows like, I think it's called Tiny House Living or something like that, where they show you different tiny houses. Doom scrolling. So I asked Jen if she knew this word, and she didn't. But I have heard this word, and I have seen this word in a couple of news articles. Doom scrolling is when you take your phone and you go on TikTok or you go on YouTube Shorts and you sit like this. And you just watch one short video after another. And then all of a sudden you look up and realize that over an hour has gone by. So that would be referred to as doom scrolling. I said I've heard this word. To be more truthful, I've read this word. Like I've seen it in different news articles, how doom scrolling is becoming more and more of a problem, where people sit on their phone and they just scroll endlessly, watch one TikTok after another or something else. Quiet quitting. So this is something that started after the pandemic. Quiet quitting refers to going to work and doing just enough work so that no one gets annoyed with you. Like you're not sitting around like this guy. This is probably a bad example. But if I was to quiet quit, I would show up at work at exactly the time I was supposed to start. And I would literally do just enough work so it looks like I'm working, but I wouldn't work hard and I wouldn't work fast and I wouldn't do any extra work. Like I wouldn't stay an extra 5 minutes to finish a few things. Yes, I don't agree with quiet quitting. I'm more of a do your job well so people appreciate you and so that you continue to have the job. That would be my vote. Beast mode. So this isn't one that I've actually heard a lot, but I have, when I played video games, people would use this term, but people are starting to use it in real life. A beast is like a really strong monster. And when we say someone's in beast mode, it means they are performing usually at something physical at a really high level. So for instance, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Hit 3 home runs in a game. We would say, oh, he was in beast mode last night. Like he was like just hitting them like he was a monster. If I had 3 hours of grading to do and I sat down and got it done in an hour and a half, I could say, oh, yeah, I just went beast mode last night and got it all done. I don't use this term very often, but definitely one that you will hear now and then. Triggered. So when someone is triggered, it means something they read or something they saw on TV or something someone said to them made them instantly angry or upset. So this happens more and more in the world. When I showed a picture of Messi and said he was the greatest of all time, some of you might have been triggered because maybe there's a different football player that you think is better than Messi. And I shouldn't be saying he's the greatest of all time. That would mean you were triggered. You're like, what is Bob talking about? He doesn't know anything about football or soccer. So this probably was a word that's been around a long time, but I've heard it a lot more in the last 2 or 3 years. I've really started to hear it. Oh, that when you said that, it was triggering, or that triggered some of the students, or the YouTuber said this and his audience was triggered. They got really, really angry. They got really, really upset. So, and it comes from trigger, right? That's what it comes from. The idea that you're instantly angry. Side hustle. So a side hustle is when you do something besides your normal job in order to earn some money. So YouTube for me started as a side hustle. I was teaching full time, but I started to make English lessons on YouTube. So I had a job, but I was doing something extra on the side as a side hustle. So I used 2 phrases there, right? On the side as a side hustle. And then eventually more and more people watched my videos and I was able to go part-time. So now I'm kind of part-time teacher, part-time YouTuber. So I wouldn't call it, it kind of still is a side hustle, I guess. Jen started growing flowers as a side hustle. She was actually teaching and she was on maternity leave from time to time. So she started to grow flowers and sell them as a side hustle. So again, a side hustle is kind of like a small little business you run. Like let's say you work all day selling cars, And at night, you clean the interior of people's cars to make extra money. We would call that a side hustle. The metaverse. So the metaverse, what is the metaverse? We live in the universe. We live in the real world. But if you go online, generally it's considered something where you would wear virtual reality a VR headset, and you go into a digital world. We would probably call it the metaverse. I think Facebook calls their actual, augmented reality or virtual reality the metaverse, but the term itself can be used to refer to any digital version of reality. Someday I might teach English lessons in the metaverse. You might actually be sitting in front of me. Well, I'll be wearing VR headsets. I actually don't think this is going to happen. Maybe one of my kids will do it this way. But the metaverse, a digital version, a virtual reality digital playground, I guess you could say, the metaverse. Porch pirate. This is an annoying one. This has never happened to me, but I have 2 large dogs. As people have started to order more things from places like Amazon, there has been a rise in the amount of porch pirates. A porch pirate is someone who drives around and they look for houses that have packages by the front door from Amazon or from somewhere else, and then they run up and steal the package. We call that a porch pirate. So a porch is the front part of a house in North America. You have your front porch. So this is the front porch. And sometimes when you order something, the delivery person will just leave it by the door if no one's home. But you have to be careful because a porch pirate might come and steal that from you. So again, a porch pirate, someone who drives around looking for packages that people have ordered from a place like Amazon, packages that have been delivered, and then they steal them to see what is inside and maybe to sell it or use it themselves. Intermittent fasting. This one's hard for me to say. Intermittent fasting is a new way of eating. This is very North American. A lot of North Americans eat too much. So in order to lose weight or to get in shape, they will do what's called intermittent fasting. This means you limit when you eat food during the day. Some people will only eat between noon and 6 o'clock if they're doing intermittent fasting. Or they might have breakfast at 10 a.m. and they stop eating at 5. They have their last meal at 5. There are a number of different ways to do intermittent fasting. I'm not an expert, but I do know it's a strategy to control the amount of food you're eating so that you burn more fat and so you lose weight. So intermittent fasting, intermittent means like time-based, okay? And you can see on this bowl, which has bowl clock, that this person eats from 1 till 6. So it looks like they have a 5-hour window and they only eat during that time. I look at it and I just think intermittent fasting is like, you just don't eat breakfast every day. To me, that's what intermittent fasting is, but it's a little more structured than that. Photobombing. Now, this is not a new term, but when you photobomb, it's when you see someone having their picture taken and you kind of go behind them. It used to be you tried to put bunny rabbit ears. People used to do that sometimes. But you can see this guy is photobombing this family. So they're at the beach. I think it's the beach. They decided that they would like to have their picture taken. And then this random person just jumps into the photo. So we would call that a photobomb. This does happen at school sometimes. Sometimes I even do it to students. I see them taking a picture and I walk behind and I just make a funny face. So photobomb, to jump into a photo as it's being taken uninvited. That would be how I would describe what a photobomb is. Selfie. So this is an old one. I think selfies have probably been around for 15 years or longer. I don't know when the term itself started, but a selfie is when you take your camera and you take a picture of yourself. So you see the word self in it. You can take a picture of yourself. Jen and I took selfies before phones existed. They weren't very common, but sometimes we would hold the camera up ourselves if we were on a trip. When we were young and did crazy fun things before we had 5 kids, when we went somewhere, sometimes we would take a picture of the two of us ourselves. We would use the timer or push the button on the camera and take a picture. But a selfie is when you take a picture of yourself. That is what a selfie is. So you can see the word self in it. Yeah, very cool. Glamping. I taught this phrase in another lesson, I think, about the outdoors. Glamping is a combination of 2 words, glamour or glamorous, and camping. So when something is glamorous, it's amazing and luxurious, and it's like this. If you were to camp and your tent looks like that, that's a pretty glamorous tent. So glamping is a form of camping where it's more than just sleeping in a tent that you pitch yourself. This one, I think, even has air conditioning. I'm not sure what that is on the ground beside the tent, but this is glamping. Glamorous camping is how I would describe it. A beautiful tent, a flat wooden floor instead of just sleeping on the ground or on a cushion. But definitely something I haven't done, but I think I've mentioned there is a place just down the road from me where you can go glamping, and they have yurts. You can go glamping in a yurt. Staycation is when you have a vacation, but you just stay home. Jen and I do many, many staycations. I will be on staycation this afternoon at around 4 o'clock. I will be done my work day about an hour early today. So Jen and I have nothing planned this weekend. We could go somewhere, but we are just going to stay home. So a vacation where you stay at home, a staycation. This isn't a new word. This is probably 5 or 10 years old, maybe even 10 years old, staycation. But I have heard this word used quite a bit lately. Hangry. This happens to me quite a bit. This is not a real word, but people use this word. Hangry is a combination of being hungry and being angry. When I don't eat for a very long time, I get kind of agitated. Not angry, but I'm in a bad mood because I'm hungry. And so Jen might say, "You seem hangry," which means I'm a little bit angry and a lot hungry, or maybe a lot angry and a lot hungry. So we notice this sometimes with our kids. They come home, they are really hungry, and they are in kind of a grouchy, bad mood. We would then say they are hangry. They are hungry and angry at the same time. An influencer. An influencer is someone who has an online following, a large online following. It usually also means they're younger. I don't often hear people my age who are successful online referred to as influencers, but I think it's more like if you're on TikTok or Instagram where you're really popular doing reels or shorts or something like that. So an influencer is someone who has become popular because of Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook even, and who uses the fact that they have lots of followers sometimes to, not necessarily to sell things, but to recommend things. Apparently, like if I told you all to go buy something, that would be me influencing you, because many of you, 243 of you, are watching this. I could use my influence to encourage you to do something. Let me think of a really positive example, because I don't actually do a lot of this, but let's say Brent from American English with Brent had a new book out, an English grammar book. As, I hate using this term, if I considered myself an influencer, I could say, you should buy Brent's book. It's really good. So I would be influencing you to buy something. By the way, if that ever did happen, if Brent did write a book, and if it was good, it's not an automatic. If Brent did write a book and it was good, I would use my influence, I guess. It's more like, if I think it's a good book, I want you to read it. So Anyways, influencer, someone who helps you change your mind or encourages you to do something. And then mansplaining. So mansplaining is an interesting one. This is when a man explains something to a woman thinking she doesn't know anything about it. So here's a good example. If you look at this picture, sometimes in the world we think maybe men know more about computers than women. I don't actually think that's true. I teach computer class. Often male and female students are just as gifted and talented as each other. But let's say this guy walks up and sees one of these ladies explaining something to the other lady without even waiting to see if they need help. If he starts explaining what the other person was explaining, thinking they don't know anything, that's mansplaining. He thinks in his mind, because he's a man, he must know more, which again is not true. So let me state that again. I have a lot of experience teaching students how to use computers, and both guys and girls are equally talented at using computers. There's no difference. Some of my best students have been female students in the computer world. But yes, mansplaining, like, it's like if a man saw a woman changing a tire on a car, and instead of helping or asking if they need help, they start telling them how to do it, even though the woman might totally know how to do it. That's mansplaining. Not a nice thing to do. Remember the word jerk from the last lesson? Someone who does that is a jerk.